we are joined this morning by some people we're big fans of. The Babylon Bee's CEO, Seth Dillon, and Joel Berry, the managing editor, right? And you guys have I don't know how new it is. It's been out for a little while, right, this book?
Coming out in October.
Okay, it's not out yet.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So we have
pre-order only
hot off the press copies.
Yeah.
The Babylon Bee Guide to Gender. So I guess the first question is, how many genders are there then?
That's a tough one.
Well, as of the printing of the book.
Yeah, that's the problem. The book is already outdated.
Yeah, right.
We're going to have to add an appendix after this, but it's infinite. You know, it's not really about the gender so much as it is affirming the ideology of self-identification.
Yeah.
And so it can really be anything.
Yeah, it really can. And it's been mind-boggling to me that the left has been so accepting of this. Like, these are the people who were bashing us for years that were science deniers. that we hold to some sort of religiosity or ideology that doesn't exist in science, and here they are telling us that you can't even ascertain how to determine a woman. It's amazing to me what's happened.
Yeah, or telling you that a man can get pregnant. But the thing is, the science goes along with it. Like, if you go to healthline.com, it says men can get pregnant. So they have all the scientific resources they need to say that this is part of science now. They just reference, supportive sources.
How did this happen so quickly? Or has it always just been lying in wait and now they're releasing it to us? This insanity.
It's been happening under the surface for a long time, for decades. And if you really wanted to dig into it, you could trace it back to Rousseau and this idea of, the inner self being who we truly are, this Gnostic idea of the body meaning nothing. And it kind of devolved from there. It started percolating in the universities in the 80s and 90s. And it seems like it was sprung on us so quickly. Mm-hmm. I think that's part of the comedy is like that, it happened last week and we're all supposed to go along with it without arguing or asking questions.
There's that clip, I'm sure you've seen it, where Dennis Prager is on Bill Maher's show, and he's talking about how, the whole tampon issue and how they're putting tampons in boys' restrooms and saying that boys can get their periods and stuff. And Bill Maher and his audience laughed at Dennis. Like, it was insane. What are you talking about? No one is saying this stuff. I'm trying to remember what year that was. It was probably like 2018.
Yeah, I think it was
probably the last month.
Yeah, so it wasn't that long ago that even people on the left thought this was wildly insane and would laugh in your face if you brought it to them seriously. And now look where we are.
Yeah, little did they know the foundation had been poured.
Yeah.
I do appreciate this line from your book here. Do you know who keeps the same gender their entire lives? Boring people. That's who. I mean, that's what we're supposed to believe. Like, it's just normal now. It's what a mad world.
It is. It's a fad, and it's really if you look at kind of some of this content on TikTok from Gen Z, it's almost become a sexualization or a fetishization of personality types. I mean, we're talking about personality types here. Evangelicals have the Enneagram, and they like to talk about how they're a 9 wing 3 or whatever. The leftists have their gender, and that's kind of been a theme for the left for a long time. The kind of the sexualization of everything.
It does seem to me when I look at the whole trans women wanting access to the women's restroom, and talking about, they even talk openly sometimes about how aroused they are when they're in the women's restroom.
Yeah.
There's some, it's in a lot of ways, it just seems like an excuse to live out these fetishes. And have it be socially acceptable rather than be something that they're, scorned or condemned for.
Yeah. You guys see this as temporary? Is this something that is fleeting? Do you think that, will people look back on this time period and say, what the hell happened to humanity? or is this permanent?
I hope so. Well, it's internally inconsistent. I think it has to collapse at some point.
I think so too.
The sad thing is, though, it will only collapse after it's done a lot of damage.
Yeah. It's already done a lot of damage and will continue to.
And that's part of what we're doing here is we're trying to, in our own little silly way, stave off the damage by mocking it.
I don't think there's any better way to stave off the damage than by mocking it.
Yeah, I think it's an effective way of doing it. But to the question of, is this going to stick around? Is it going to stay? We can look at examples in history of these really crazy social experiments that were supposed to be rooted in science. Eugenics is one of them. Lobotomizing people that had, depression or anxiety or whatever. There were or personality disorders. And there were things that scientists were touting as, this is something that is good. We're helping evolution along or something like that. And then people realized at some point they woke up and they realized the horror of what was actually happening. And this is actually resulting in a lot of death and destruction and disarray. Yeah. I think that when it comes to this stuff getting imposed on kids and kids going into, surgeries and mutilation and whatever, that's where I think a lot of people are going to wake up.
Yeah,
I hope so.
We had a couple of weeks ago a clip from an Irish journalist, and she said that the reason why this gender madness won't go away is because you have so many parents that have sold their own children a bill of goods, and they've written a check that they can't cash, and now their children have been sterilized, mutilated. And now these parents are like Japanese soldiers at the end of World War II. They're going to fight to the death now to continue to push this ideology, or else they look like liars to their children. But I think you're also right in that the only way to defeat not only this, but most of the absurdities on the left is by mocking it. And I think this book does a great job of laying out common sense and showing people in obvious form. Like, I just love the 10 commandments of gender in the middle of the book, with commandments like thou shalt not dead name, thou shalt steal first place in women's sports leagues. And I think this kind of stuff that is going to resonate with the person in middle America that's just like, I want to be left alone. Look how absurd this stuff is. We have to take a stand one way or another, and through humor and mocking it, I think, is the way. And you guys have always done a great job at that through Babylon Bee.
It is effective. One of our most popular headlines ever was the motorcyclist who identifies as a bicyclist and sets a world record. That's awesome. I mean, it's got millions of shares. I
think we talked about that.
It resonated with people.
So great.
And what I say all the time is, when people have abandoned reason on purpose and they're no longer living in reality and they're trying to get you to affirm things that are completely irrational, they're saying you got to agree that 2 and 2 make 5.
Yeah.
Trying to reason with them isn't really super helpful when they've jettisoned reason on purpose. Yeah, it's not going to get you anywhere. But you can mock their silliness, the bad ideas,
right?
And that actually gets through to people, I think.
You guys have faced censorship quite a bit. By the way, we're speaking to Seth and Joel from the Babylon Bee. They have this new book, The Babylon Bee Guide to Gender. You guys have faced censorship from fact checkers and big tech and the mainstream media. Tell us about some of the challenges you faced in the last few years.
Oh, well.
Because they come for you, don't they?
Where do I begin?
Yeah.
Our fact checking is kind of where it started with us. If you go back to 2018, we had a headline about how CNN had purchased an industrial-sized washing machine to spin the news in before publishing. And Facebook.
Was that not true?
It turned out they didn't actually do that. Oh, wow. But we only know that because of Snopes.
And so amazing.
They started fact checking us, and we started getting these threatening warnings from Facebook that they were going to take our page down and demonetize us if we kept publishing false stories. And we're like, wait a minute, there's a distinction between satire and legitimate misinformation that's intended to mislead people. And
did they admit to that difference?
They did initially, yes, they did. But they did continue to work with third-party fact checkers who continued to fact check our jokes.
My gosh.
And so we ended up getting dinged a bunch of times with all this false information or whatever. That's kind of where it started. But then, of course, you get into these issues, like the gender issues, and you start getting flagged for hate speech.
Sure.
Because anytime you say you refer to Rachel Levine as a man, you're misgendering. That falls under the hateful conduct policy. So we've had a lot of that happening. That's the reason we got kicked off of Twitter.
Yeah, and you are effectively the reason Elon Musk owns Twitter today.
We have him on recording saying that, but yeah. Kind of in jest, but yes, it factored into his decision in the sense that there's people like the Bee aren't able to speak freely in the public square anymore.
Yeah,
and so something needs to be done about that. And so I think our refusal to delete that, the situation with Twitter was they told us you have to delete this
The
or you
Rachel
won't-
Levine tweet.
Yeah, the Rachel Levine
Man of
tweet
the
where
Year,
we
Woman
said
of the
we
Year.
named Rachel Levine. Sorry, yeah, we named Rachel Levine Man of the Year
Man-
in
It's
response to
Admiral
USA
Rachel
Today.
Levine.
Right.
Don't forget the ring.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how the left won't see the irony in that. Right?
Yeah.
They'll just get pissed off about it.
Yeah, they just get
and
mad.
they'll call you haters and bigots and all of that
Right.
stuff.
And-
And they don't see the irony.
And the other irony too, I always laugh about this because we're the writers of the Babylon Bee. We're just these like boring Christian guys. You know, we don't cuss. We don't have blue humor. You know, we don't. What we're saying to us doesn't seem edgy or transgressive.
Right.
You know, but in today's world, the truth is like the edgiest thing you can say. And so
Yeah,
we've
true.
gained this kind of this weird reputation that for being these edgy comedians.
We're pushing the boundaries by calling a male person a man.
Yeah.
What is a favorite headline that you've written that you think is the gold standard for you? Does anything stick in your mind?
I have a personal favorite. I don't know if it's our best one, but one of my favorite ones that I did was when the BLM stuff was happening in 2020, and a lot of the NFL teams and NBA teams were kind of virtue signaling and painting their fields. Ruth Bader Ginsburg had just passed away, and I did a headline where LeBron James and the rest of his team wore frilly lace collars with their jerseys to honor Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And
The Photoshop made that one because it looked like they were really wearing these little lacy things.
Yeah, we put these lacy collars
Yeah.
on the NBA players, and the funny thing about it for me was that it went viral on the left. It's one of our articles that went viral on the
Yeah.
left. It made the rounds in fashion circles in Paris and Cosmopolitan, Elle magazine. The editors
Was
in
it
chief of those,
treated seriously?
It was treated seriously. They thought it was real, and they thought it was
That's
the most
so great.
inspiring thing that they had ever seen. And
That is unbelievable.
Yeah,
That-
there were a couple of New York Times reporters that
Yeah.
shared it on Twitter and thought it was real.
this is the best thing I've seen
Yeah,
today.
yeah.
Those kind of takes, and that's when I was kind of like, we're hitting on something. When you're close enough to
Yeah.
truth, where people believe that is a feasible thing.
Right.
then
We've
you're
mentioned
over the
many
target.
times that it's got to be really tough for you guys
Yeah.
because reality is so bizarre now that how do you make it into satire
so many things
when
you've
it's
said.
already satirical to begin with?
You guys have said so many things in joke headlines that became our
actual.
reality.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
What do
gotta
we
be tough.
we shared one yesterday that was another one of our, we call them prophecies fulfilled. We published a fake op-ed from a leftist columnist saying that people being able to select their leaders is a threat to democracy. And
How's that real?
the New York Times
Yes.
just published an op-ed
Yeah.
saying elections are a threat to democracy.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.